Hello, dear students. I hope you're all doing well, staying healthy, staying fit, staying safe, and at least you recognize me. These months long gap due to this lockdown, I hope has not made me a stranger to you. Anyways, in our physical contact classes, that is, the classes uh, were held in the college before the before the closure of the college due to the lockdown. To the two sections of life science combinations, I was handling topics from the biochemistry paper of the chemistry, and the topics were bioenergetics and metabolism. Bioenergetics and metabolism combined, we have discussed a lot of things in the class, except for a small portion that is regarding the amino acid metabolism. As you know, the macronutrients in our food comprise of carbohydrate, lipids, and proteins, whereas the micronutrients are the metals and the vitamins. However, the carbohydrate metabolism and lipid metabolism, if we can recall the highlights of these topics from our discussions, the carbohydrates are digested to glucose, and the glucose is oxidized to the level of carbon dioxide in the aerobic mode to give us 32 ATPs, or to give the cell 32 ATPs in total. Whereas in the anaerobic mode of respiration, the oxidation of glucose is incomplete and stops at the level of either lactic acid or ethanol, and in the process only 2 ATPs are derived. What about the lipid metabolism? The fats, oils and fats in the food are hydrolyzed by lipases to glycerol and fatty acids, and the fatty acids are further taken up by the body, and usually the lipids or the fats are not the primary source of energy like carbohydrates. In fact, glucose is the primary source of energy. Lipids are rather utilized as reserve energies, or the energy stores in the body. Whenever there is depletion of the glucose concentration, or whenever there is depletion, whenever there is shortage in the carbohydrate intake in the food, maybe due to starving, or uh, due to uh, due to intake of uh, carbohydrate less carbohydrate minimized diet. In such cases, the lipids are mobilized from the tissues, from the storage points, usually the adipose tissues, and then the fatty acids are metabolized. Depending on the chain length of the fatty acid, the number of ATPs produced also differ. For example, in case of palmitic acid, which is a C16 compound, or number of carbon atoms in the fatty acid is 16, this fatty acid undergoes oxidation through a pathway called beta oxidation pathway. And when palmitic acid through beta oxidation is fully oxidized to the level of carbon dioxide, totally 129 ATPs are produced. Now coming to the last macronutrient in our food, that is the proteins. There is a stark contrast or a big difference in the way proteins are used in the body compared to carbohydrates and lipids. Carbohydrates and lipids are energy sources, they are the fuel molecules, whereas proteins rarely serve serve the purpose of giving ATPs. Rather, proteins are hydrolyzed to their constituent monomers, that are amino acids, and these amino acids obtained from dietary proteins or the proteins in the food. Please note, the amino acid obtained from the proteins in the food are used by the cells to prepare their own proteins. Therefore, the amino acids are, or the amino acid pool in the body is used always for protein synthesis. However, amino acids do undergo metabolism sometimes. What are those circumstances when amino acids undergo metabolism? Those are like when there is excess of amino acid in the body, maybe sometimes due to the animals higher intake of proteins in the food, or under some metabolic conditions or some metabolic syndromes, the amino acids do undergo metabolism. But before we go into the reactions of metabolism, let us see briefly how the proteins are digested. The stomach cuts the protein chain into smaller chains called peptides. How is this cutting done? Through the hydrolytic process, through hydrolysis, using hydrolysis enzyme, hydrolytic enzyme. Pepsin is one hydrolytic enzyme present in stomach. Now, the peptides, these are the partially hydrolyzed products of proteins, move to small intestine, and there is a range of enzymes which are called peptidases, trypsin, chymotrypsin, aminopeptidase, carboxypeptidase, act on peptide chains and hydrolyze them into the monomeric constituents, which are the amino acids. So, what is the hierarchy in the architecture of proteins? Proteins can be broken into small peptides. Peptides are hydrolyzed into amino acids. And when the amino acids are absorbed into blood, strangely, they don't reach cells as such. Rather, the amino acids in the blood are transported to liver, and the liver redistributes the amino acids to different tissues of the body, depending on the specific needs of the tissues. There are some tissues which use higher amount of different metabolites. For example, brain doesn't use amino acids at all for any of its energy requirement, or lipids at all for any of its energy requirement. Brain is exclusively dependent on glucose for its energy requirement. Therefore, in body, different tissues have different requirements of the metabolites. Now, this diagram also indicates that protein chain, a big long chain, is broken by proteases in the stomach to peptides. Peptides are broken to amino acids in the intestine by the action of peptidases enzymes. Now, I have written a structure of, or I have adopted a structure of, chemical structure of protein made up of different amino acids joined together covalently by a peptide bond. From organic chemistry point of view, peptide bond is nothing but an amide bond. However, peptide bond is a special amide bond which occurs only between amino acids to form peptides. When peptides are hydrolyzed, we get a pool of amino acids. Please remember that there are only 20 amino acids which make proteins of living beings, and these 20 amino acids are also used by the body to make its own proteins. There is one small topic of interest here. Actually, the amino acids can be classified into essential and non-essential amino acids. I hope you know the difference. Anyway, we will move on because for our discussions that point is not required. Anyways, now let us see what are the reactions of amino acids or reactions of amino acid metabolism. Recall the structure of amino acid. Amino acid is a bifunctional organic compound, or amino acid is a bifunctional biomolecule. It contains a carboxylic group as well as an amino group attached to the same carbon atom, which is called the alpha carbon atom. The other two bonds, one bond is attached to a side chain, which is an alkyl group, and the other bond is to the hydrogen always. So of 20 different amino acids, and in fact there are more amino acids other than these 20 also, which are called non-proteinogenic amino acid. Anyways, in all these amino acids, the architecture is the one which is identical, except for the difference only in the R portion, that is the side chain. Anyways, so now what are the reactions possible on this bifunctional compound or bifunctional biomolecule? It can undergo decarboxylation reaction. Decarboxylation is removal of carboxylic group, usually in the form of carbon dioxide, and the leftover molecule would contain only the amino group. So the decarboxylation is one pathway in which amino acids get metabolized. What is the other pathway? Deamination. Like carboxylic acid group can be removed, amino group can also be removed. So if an amino group is removed, we get carboxylic acid. But please note the difference here. The amino group is not removed only as isolated amino group. Instead, the removal of amino group is always coupled with formation of a oxo bond or a keto group on the alpha carbon atom. Anyways, we are going to see these carboxylation, decarboxylation, deamination reactions in detail in the next slides. I am just giving you an outline of different reactions alpha amino acids undergo, metabolic reactions alpha amino acids undergo. And there is one important pathway of amino acid metabolism, that is called transamination. What is transamination? We will see in the coming slides. However, the deamination is not very straightforward. In fact, it is classified into two types: non-oxidative deamination and oxidative deamination. So to put it in a nutshell, what are the different reactions an amino acid undergoes in the cells? Decarboxylation, non-oxidative deamination, oxidative deamination, and transamination. So these are the four reactions which we are going to study in our discussion now. Let us take the first reaction, decarboxylation reaction. So if carboxylic group is removed from an amino acid, what is the product? The product is naturally an amine. Which are the enzymes which does this reaction? The enzymes are called decarboxylases, which also requires a coenzyme for its working, that is pyridoxal phosphate. The product amines are usually metabolites which have important physiological or metabolic activity. Example, they may act as hormones or neurotransmitters. Look at an example of an amino acid, glutamic acid, which is also called glutamate, which undergoes decarboxylation. The enzyme involved is glutamate decarboxylase, GAD, and the pyridoxal phosphate, PLP, is the cofactor or the coenzyme. What happens if the carboxylic group is removed? Please understand an important difference here. Glutamate is a trifunctional amino acid. As I told, that the R chain, side chain, can contain additional functional groups also. Glutamate contains an additional carboxylic group in its side chain. Now, which carboxylic acid is removed? It is always the alpha carboxylic acid which is removed by the action of decarboxylase enzymes. So if the alpha carboxylase is removed, what are the functional groups left over in the product? It will be one carboxylic acid which was in the side chain before and the alpha amino group. Now, what is the name of that product? That is gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA. Maybe you have heard the name of GABA in other contexts. GABA is a neurotransmitter. Therefore, decarboxylation of an amino acid is a pathway which produces neurotransmitters like GABA. This is one significance of decarboxylation of amino acid. Please note, in glucose metabolism as well as lipid metabolism, all our discussion was on how ATP is produced due to successive and slow oxidation of those molecules. But here ATP doesn't come into picture at all. We are looking into the pathways where amino acid is converted to some other compound, and most of the times that some other compound product is a biologically valuable, physiologically valuable product. Therefore, energy production from amino acids is not an important pathway at all. In fact, it's a trivial pathway when it comes to the metabolism of amino acids. Okay, the next is the non-oxidative deamination. Non-oxidative deamination is rather confined or limited to only two amino acids, serine and threonine. Serine as an additional and even threonine have additional OH groups, hydroxyl groups in their side chain. They are acted upon by the enzyme serine dehydratase to remove water, an elimination reaction to remove water, giving us C double bond CH2 an alkene. And please see that this alkene is very susceptible for hydrolysis, for the attack by water. When it happens, the amino group will be removed as ammonium ion, whereas the double bond gets converted to double bond O, C double bond O. So what is the net reaction? A serine is converted into a pyruvic acid. Why did I call this non-oxidative deamination? The difference you will understand when we study the oxidative deamination. What is an oxidative deamination's pathway? An alpha amino acid is directly acted upon by the L amino acid oxidase to give an imine first, CH, and the NH2, NH, two H's are removed, elimination again, to give you C double bond NH. Basically this is an amine. So which is the oxidizing agent which carries out this conversion of C single bond N to C double bond N is flavin. Flavin, adenine dinucleotide, FAD. That FAD is getting converted to FADH2. Whereas the amino acid is actually an amino acid is very unstable in solvent like water. It easily undergoes solvations or solvolysis or hydrolysis to get broken into a C double bond O and a COO minus. You get an alpha keto acid. Therefore, both non-oxidative deamination as well as oxidative deamination products are always alpha keto acid. What is the difference now? The difference here is in non-oxidative deamination, oxidizing agents like NAD or FAD are not involved. Whereas in oxidative deamination, oxidizing agents FAD is involved and the amino acid is oxidized. Now, one example of oxidative deamination I have sketched here. Glutamic acid. Glutamic acid. We spoke about glutamic acid previously. It contains an additional carboxylic group in the side chain. But anyways, for our discussion here, that additional carboxylic group in the side chain is of no importance, is of no significance. It can be any amino acid. Is acted by glutamate dehydrogenase, or also called glutamate oxidase. Dehydrogenation and oxidation are synonyms basically. To give us an imine which gets hydrolyzed to give us alpha keto acid. What is the name of that alpha keto acid? It is 2-oxo-glutaric acid or alpha keto glutaric acid. Is it possible that you connect this alpha keto glutaric acid to some other metabolic reaction you have learned before? Yes, alpha keto glutaric acid is a intermediate or one of the products within the Krebs cycle. Therefore, it is possible that the amino acids, due to oxidative deamination, or non-oxidative deamination get converted into alpha keto acids and directly enter into Krebs cycle, where of course they undergo further oxidation and eventually release ATPs. Now coming to an important reaction very characteristic of amino acid metabolism called transamination. What is this transamination? Usually you may have heard of transesterification in organic chemistry, where one ester is converted to another ester, or simply two esters are there. They react, exchange their alcohol part and give rise to two different esters. Similarly, transamination is we have an amino acid and a keto acid. Alpha amino acid and alpha keto acids as the reactants. And these two reactants exchange their functional groups. Amino acid exchanges or replaces amino group with a keto group, whereas the keto acid replaces its keto group with the amino group. So this reaction products are a new keto acid and a new amino acid. So simply we can put like this: amino acid 1 of the reactant becomes amino acid 2 of the product. Keto acid 1 of the reactant becomes keto acid 2 of the product. But what is the relationship in the structure of this reactant set and the product set? Amino acid 1 is getting converted to keto acid 2. Keto acid 1 is getting converted to amino acid 2. I think this example clarifies the idea better. The example conveys the idea better. Alanine and alpha keto glutarate. In the position alpha keto position, you put amino group. Then what does it become? It becomes a glutamic acid. In the amino position of alanine, you put a double bond O. What does it become? It becomes pyruvate. So, because of transamination, alanine is converted to pyruvate. Alpha ketoglutarate is converted to glutamate. Now, pyruvate again is the end product of glycolysis. Therefore, transamination, what is the significance of transamination? Transamination converts alpha amino acids into alpha keto acids, which can enter Krebs cycle. And of course, finally, these alpha keto acids undergo oxidation and give ATPs. Therefore, in all these reactions, decarboxylation, oxidative deamination and non-oxidative deamination and transamination, what is the summary of the reactions? That decarboxylation produces physiologically important amines. Oxidative deamination, non-oxidative deamination as well as transamination converts alpha amino acids into alpha keto acids, which are intermediates of Krebs cycles. With this, I think our discussion on the reactions of amino acids is complete. Now, whenever we discuss the metabolism of amino acid, we have to discuss along with that urea cycle also. But what is the connection between urea cycle and the metabolism of amino acids? The connection is in the form of ammonia. If you look at deamination reactions, oxidative deamination as well as non-oxidative deamination, along with alpha keto acids, the byproduct is ammonia. Now, ammonia is a small molecule which is soluble in water, but higher concentrations of ammonia, when it builds up in the blood, it becomes toxic to the organs of the body. Particularly to the brain, ammonia is very toxic. Therefore, the body should come up with a mechanism through which ammonia is excreted or eliminated. It is get rid of. You may have come across terms like ammonotelic, ureotelic, and uricotelic in your biology classes. What do these terms mean? Ammonotelic means the animals excrete ammonia in the form of gaseous ammonia directly, or maybe in the form of ammonium dissolved in water. What is ureotelic? Where the ammonia is converted into urea and excreted. Uricotelic, ammonia is converted into uric acid and excreted. But the examples for uricotelic animals are birds, whereas the other animals, mammals like us, we are all ureotelic. Therefore, we have a mechanism inbuilt in our system where ammonia, which is produced due to the metabolism of amino acids, is excreted in the form of urea. An interesting point here is the urea synthesis or the production of urea takes place in liver. Usually when we talk of urea dissolved in water, it becomes urine. We associate it with kidneys. But please note, kidneys do not synthesize urea. Rather, liver synthesizes urea, and this urea is secreted into the blood by the liver. And what do kidneys do now? The kidneys filter urea from the blood and excrete them out in the form of urine. So, kidneys are only filters, and their and the compound they filter is, or the, in fact, kidneys excrete any excess metabolites in the blood, anything in the blood which is unwanted to the body. But urea, of course, is the first compound which is filtered by the, or is the most important compound which is filtered by kidneys. Let us now see the reactions of urea production. The first step in the synthesis of urea is this, that is the ammonium ions. What are the source of these ammonium ions? Yes, deamination reactions of amino acids is combined with bicarbonate ion to form a compound called carbamoyl phosphate, and this reaction is highly energy requiring reaction. That means this is an endergonic reaction. In fact, 2 ATP molecules are required for this reaction. Usually the endergonic reactions are also rate limiting reactions in a multi-step cycles or multi-step synthesis. Endergonic reactions are rate limiting. This is again a rate limiting step. Where does the reaction takes place? It takes place in mitochondria. Of which organ? Mitochondria of the liver cells. Liver cells are also called hepatic cells. So liver cells, mitochondria, condense ammonium and bicarbonate by the hydrolysis of ATP to give us, or to produce carbamoyl phosphate. What happens to carbamoyl phosphate next? If you look at the structure of carbamoyl phosphate, you can see it is NH2, C double bond O, and the phosphate moiety. What is the structure of urea? NH2, C double bond O, NH2. So what should happen? What is the expectation now? What should happen to the carbamoyl phosphate? An additional NH2 group should be added to already existing NH2C double bond O. So all the following reactions now are meant to add that additional NH2 group and cleave the carbamoyl phosphate to produce urea. Let me first take you through the steps and then show you the structures. The first step is carbamoyl phosphate combines with ornithine amino acid, the structure which I am going to show later, to form citrulline. Citrulline condenses with aspartic acid or aspartate to form arginosuccinate. Arginosuccinate is cleaved into arginine and fumarate. Arginine is further decomposed or cleaved into urea, and ornithine is restored or ornithine is produced back. Now, there are 4 steps after carbamoyl phosphate is formed. One is carbamoyl phosphate to citrulline, citrulline to citrulline plus aspartic acid to arginosuccinate, arginosuccinate cleaving into arginine, arginine further cleaving into ornithine plus urea. This is the urea which is the output of the cycle basically. Why is it called an urea cycle? Why is it not called a urea synthesis? As we have seen with Krebs cycle, a cycle in biochemistry or in metabolism basically means the first compound of the multi-step reaction is also the last compound. In this case, ornithine is the first compound of the cycle, which is also the last compound. You can look at the last compound where last reaction where arginine is cleaved into ornithine plus urea. Ornithine is regenerated. So this happens in cycles. What about the Krebs cycle, which is the first compound? Krebs cycle, first compound. Yes, oxaloacetate. Oxaloacetate condenses with pyruvate to give you tricarboxylic acid, citric acid. What is the last compound of the cycle? Last product of the cycle? It is oxaloacetate. So this is how cycles operate. Now, please remember the enzymes which do these reactions. Ornithine transcarbamylase, arginosuccinate synthase, arginosuccinate lyase. Lyase means carrying out a lysis, cleavage reaction, and then arginase. There is difference in the locations of these reactions or the spots of these reactions also. Synthesis of carbamyl phosphate happens in mitochondria of liver cells. Citrulline synthesis happens in mitochondria of liver cells. Whereas arginosuccinate formation, arginine formation, ornithine plus urea formation, these 3 steps happen in the cytoplasm of the liver cells. Look at the structures of the intermediates of the urea cycle. You can see the carbamyl phosphate, top left, condensing with ornithine. Look at the structure of ornithine. It is a trifunctional amino acid, CH2, CH2, NH2. And you see the NH2 C double bond O group is transferred onto the side chain of ornithine. Then the citrulline condenses with citrulline is phosphorylated to give citrulline is phosphorylated. ATP is used again. Remember, 2 ATPs were used in the synthesis of carbamyl phosphate. Arginosuccinate is formed. Arginosuccinate is cleaved to give arginine, and the arginine is further hydrolyzed by arginase enzyme to give urea plus ornithine. Identify the intermediates: ornithine, citrulline, citrulline plus aspartic acid gives us arginosuccinate. Arginosuccinate cleaves to arginine. Arginine cleaves to ornithine. So these are the intermediates of urea cycle. What is the net reaction of urea cycle? If you look into this equation, it is like this: ammonium, it is NH4 plus NH4 plus, it is not just NH4, NH4 plus carbon dioxide plus aspartate gives plus ATPs. Products are urea, fumarate and the ADPs. Now, what is the, if you look at this in detail, or if this cycle interests you a bit and you want to dissect it a bit more, what do you see? Now urea has NH2CO NH2. One NH2 of this urea has come from ammonium. CO has come from carbon dioxide or the carbonate. Whereas the other NH2 come from, basically, if you can track this, citrulline as in the side chain NH, double bond O, NH2. The NH has come from ornithine. Now, when you see the aspartic acid condensing with citrulline to give you arginosuccinate, and you can see that there is one more NH group added in the arginosuccinate. Whereas that NH it has come from aspartic acid. This aspartic acid eventually loses its NH2 group and also get oxidized to become fumarate. That is what I have shown here. Aspartate is becoming fumarate also. And what about this fumarate? Fumarate is intermediate of Krebs cycle again. Fumarate becomes fumarase, enzyme acted upon, hydrolyzed to give you malic acid or malonic acid, malic acid, yes, which gets converted into oxaloacetate in the next step. So, don't bother too much about where the NH2 has come from. It was only out of an additional extra interest I just told you. Anyways, so if you have to recall what all the things we have learnt in our discussion today, important points to recall. Amino acids undergo three types of reactions: deamination, decarboxylation and transamination. Deamination converts amino acids into alpha keto acids. Decarboxylation changes amino acids or converts amino acids into aliphatic amines, which are metabolically useful. Transamination, this is a very important statement. Transamination interconverts alpha amino acids and alpha keto acids. Urea is synthesized in liver from ammonia, which is produced from amino acid metabolism. Kidneys filter urea from blood and excrete. So I hope that you were with me, you have followed this presentation, and in case you have any doubt or you want more information on this, you can always contact me, WhatsApp maybe, and we can interact there. Thank you.